My name is Joy, and I was diagnosed with systemic lupus erythematosus back in late 2018. Feel free to join me through the trials and triumphs of my life journey. Please subscribe, like, watch, and don't forget to hit that notification bell as I share the joys of my life through this lens while continuing to manage the symptoms and flares that are associated with this unpredictable disease. In past videos, I think I might have touched on my lupus story. I might have given you more of a Cliff Note version of what actually happened or when I was diagnosed with lupus. But today I wanted to share with you guys the timeline that actually led to the revelation that I'm living with the disease that actually causes my immune system to work against my body. I figured that I would share my story now because every so often I'll have someone approach me asking me about my personal medical journey, or more specifically how I was diagnosed with lupus. And 9 out of 10 times these inquiries are usually coming from individuals that are experiencing symptoms that bear a resemblance to lupus or some other autoimmune disease. I remember reading several years ago that lupus usually occurs between the ages of 15 and 45 years old. With that said, let me jump into my medical history, starting with my adolescent years. You know, when I look back on my childhood symptoms, they didn't seem to be that serious based on my family doctor's assessment during that time. I can remember when I was around the ages of 13 or 14 years old, I would develop these rashes, which I later discovered they would happen for different reasons, and it was caused at different times throughout my life. It actually started with sores that would develop on my scalp for no apparent reason. I could actually recall my siblings picking through my hair just to take a peek so they can express their disgust of the situation. That rash developed quickly. There were sores throughout my head. The rash spread down my neck and around my ears. After what felt like weeks, my mom finally took me to the doctor. He thought it could possibly be an allergic reaction to the shampoo or the ingredients in the shampoo. Then he suggested that my mom changes my shampoo, and I looked across the room. As I was sitting on the examining table, I looked across the room and I could see my mom's face, and I was thinking at my ripe old age of 13, 14, my mom is not going out to buy me any new shampoo. Growing up in a household with 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and we all use the same shampoo, I know the likelihood of my mom going out to buy shampoo just to accommodate me was slim to none. I can remember the doctor telling my mom that she may have to cut my hair until my scalp healed. Granted, when I was young, I had a lot of hair on my head. It actually grew like weeds. Just envision Diana Ross in her heyday when she wore her afro hair waist length. That's actually what my hair looked like when it was blown out. Before leaving the office, our doctor gave my mom a prescription for shampoo, thank God, and it was covered by the insurance. And we were instructed to wash my hair several times a week until the scalp cleared, and eventually it did. Then there were seasonal elements that affected my skin. During the cold season, my skin would break out with rashes, and I'm talking full body head to toe rashes. Not until my body was completely warm did the rash go away. Now, if that wasn't enough, during the summer months, my body would break out in rash. So in the areas of my body that were exposed to the sun. These bumps were not irritable and they did not itch. They were just simply a nuisance. And they would show up from time to time when I was exposed to the sun. Later diagnosed as heat rash. Fast forward years later, I started experiencing some brand new skin occurrences. Strangely enough, I knew when it was going to happen because all of a sudden my body just started to feel warm. Now that I'm older, I can compare that feeling to what happens when you experience a hot flash, if you've ever had one. And immediately following that, I would experience redness over my body and these welts. And this rash would eventually go away without the use of prescription drugs or over-the-counter medications. Symptoms like these are very hard to diagnose because frankly, when the symptoms occur, you're never at your doctor's office. Okay, let's fast forward to my mid-20s. I developed abdominal pain, cramps, and bloating that made everyday life just very uncomfortable. I went in and I shared this information with my doctor. And the first question he asked me was, how often was I passing my bowel? And I thought it was kind of funny because I then asked him the question, well, how often should I be passing my bowels? And his reply to my question was that I should be passing my bowels twice a day. At this point, I truly had the deer in the headlight look because at that time, I was lucky to pass my bowels twice a week. So you can imagine how this news put me into a panic because I had to come to grips with the fact that my body was not functioning as a healthy adult body should. My doctor concluded this office visit with a request for routine lab work and a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. After leaving my doctor's office, I was still a little surprised by that question. So I called my girlfriend up on my drive home. After leaving my doctor's office, I was still a little surprised by that question. So I called my girlfriend up on my drive home. I had to share this discovery. And strangely enough, she doubled down. When I asked her the question, how often do you pass your bowels? She told me that she passed her bowels a minimum of twice a day. I have to laugh because my usual reply to amazement back then was, really? I was prescribed over the years several different medications for IBS. But I realized later on that it just simply put a Band-Aid on the problem. Because when I stopped taking this medication, my body reverted right back to the old unhealthy routine. And by the time I reached my 30s, I decided to take health matters, at least those issues, into my own hand. I was already working out in my 20s. I feel like I've worked out all my life. In conjunction with the workouts, the strength training, and cardio, I started eating healthier. I started to incorporate fruits and vegetables into my daily diet. I then tweaked my supplement regimen by adding in flaxseed oil, probiotics, and magnesium. And I started drinking a minimum of 1.5 to 2 liters of water every day. When I made these changes to my lifestyle, it proved to be beneficial in the long run. I'm not going to sit here and profess that I was cured of these issues, but there was a gradual improvement over time. In 2006, I started seeing a new primary care physician. I was really excited when I found out she was a woman that was from the Caribbean. As our doctor-patient relationship progressed over time, she proved to be more than just a great doctor. On a professional level, she was extremely knowledgeable. She was honest, she was compassionate, she was thorough, she was kind, and straightforward. She made it very easy for me to share my personal medical struggles with her. Since this was my first visit with the new doctor, we just briefly went over some of the current symptoms that I was experiencing. And the first thing that came to mind was my female problems. We briefly discussed some numbing and pain that I would have in my extremities, more specifically my hands. But her primary focus were the issues that I was having with my menstrual cycle. She asked me when was the last time I had a pelvic exam. It had been a while because I was new to the area. My OBGYN was in South Florida, which was 3.5 hours away. And my focus at the time was finding a qualified primary care physician, and the OBGYN, quite honestly, was secondary to that. She ordered some routine blood work, and she referred me to her personal OBGYN, who I actually found out later on that he delivered 2 of her children. That spoke volumes to the type of person that she was. Well, as the years progressed, my primary care physician saw me in her office a minimal of once a year. And over that time, I got to know a lot about her, learn a lot about her family. She learned a lot about my medical history. I talked to her about the symptoms that I was experiencing as an adolescent, the treatments over the years. Her and I talked about the usual aches and pains, and because we had grown closer over the years, we talked a little bit about my home life in general. It was about 6 months later, I was back in her office because I was experiencing pain, joint pain once again, and this pain was isolated to my shoulders. We talked a little bit about the pain. I had already had the lab work, my routine lab work 6 months prior. We talked a little bit about the pain, and she knows that I wasn't big on taking prescription drugs. So she prescribed a topical pain cream that I use to remedy the pain that I was having. Unfortunately, this topical cream did not help. It was kind of like a temporary thing, but for some reason it was not quite pinpointing. The pain seemed like it was deep in my joints, so it was not working. But nonetheless, I continued to use the joint cream to try to mask the problem, but over time it did not do any good, honestly. 6 months later, I was back in her office, and I was experiencing once again joint pain. And this time I'm having pain in my shoulders, and the pain was so unbearable that it was hard to lift my arm without feeling pain. So I go into her office, and this time she decides to, so we were talking about the pain that I was experiencing. We talked about the pain I had been experiencing before, and I just thought it was quite interesting that like the pain is now rotating throughout my body. It's almost going from extremity to extremity. So we talked about this pain, and once she realized that she examined the shoulder areas, and when she realized that it was obviously very painful for me to lift my arms. So I said to her, that I had been doing some research, and I asked if it could possibly be an autoimmune disease, because I had been doing some research online. Strangely enough, she walked out of the examining room, and she went over to her office, and she did not come back for what felt like an hour. If it wasn't an hour, it was at least 30 to 45 minutes. She was in her office, and I was sitting in the examination room. She came back to the examination room and she told me that she was going to order an x-ray of my shoulders. She ordered the x-ray, and because it was time for me to have my routine blood work, so I was expecting the routine blood work, she said that she was going to add some lab tests to the normal blood work, and she also added a urinalysis. So I took the information, she referred me to a place to have the x-ray done, and once again, she made notes. The one thing that was always a constant about my primary care physician, she was always taking notes. Unlike doctors that I had been to in the past, more specifically the doctors that I had been to in Miami. But this woman was always taking notes. Every single time we would sit down and have conversation, each and every time we sat in her examining room, she was always taking notes based on the information that I was providing her. And thank God she did. I have lupus. First I paused, and then I said, chances are that I have lupus, or am I being diagnosed with lupus? And she said, based on the results of your lab tests and your history, you have lupus. And on that note, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, hit that notification bell. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.